Part 3, Final Ending of Why Try. I had thought that her major problems were on their way to being addressed and was looking forward to not being a part of her life, and that her sister and family members would step up to the plate and do, at least, something to help. But when the crap hit the fan, who else is there? She really hasn't shown any real ability to deal with her own problems by herself. Hopefully, the doctors will get her crap straight, and this won't be an issue in the future, because I do realize that she will have to do her work for herself. At some point, it was just shocking to have it happen like it did. I told her sister today that I was going to get new phone numbers, emails, and that I would not give them to my STBXW, but would give my number to her. The sister, after giving it a lot of thought, I finally decided that I needed to disengage from my STBXW. I went to her house and we had a long talk about her situation and that I could no longer be her go-to guy and that she would have to rely on her friends and family and doctors for her care and support. In the future, I told her that I would not be attending the final divorce hearing and that anything she needed to contact me for, she should go through my lawyer from now on, as I won't be answering her call, texts, or emails, but would automatically refer them to her sister or her psychologist. I have decided that I will try not to ever see her again, and close out this chapter of my life and hers. I think that once I clearly understood the dynamics of my situation, I was better able to make some informed decisions concerning it. In reality, there were several dynamics involved: her affair, her emotional, mental health, my emotional condition, and, of course, the divorce. Once I had my ducks in progression, I was able to act decisively on each dynamic in its proper turn. For example, once I decided that R wasn't going to happen, then I was able to be supportive of her without committing to it. It takes a lot of time and work, but I think I'm over the hump now. Well, my D is final on Monday. I can't imagine how it will play out, but nothing would surprise me. Well, the Karma bus finally turned down my street, parked in front of my house, and gave me a morale boost that has me about as happy as I've been in quite a while. My ex and her sister are moving to California at the end of July. My ex had a setback yesterday. She told her sister that she was having those thoughts. By those she meant ex. She was admitted to hospital again yesterday afternoon. A month later, I've recently bought a loft condo in Chicago, and am setting it up for my fiancé and I. Maybe my life can move forward from this. Like I told you guys, I don't know the length or ending when I do these stories. It was a surprisingly short ending. So here's a story too for you guys about her thing. Let's see where to start. I am currently deployed away from home and have been for over 7 months now. Both my wife and I are in the military, although she is back home in the States, in our house, with our 2 boys, S8, my stepson, and S6. We've been married for almost 7 years, and together for almost 8. This is the first time we've been separated for more than a week. Anyways, to elaborate on my situation, my wife and I have always had a good relationship with each other. Rarely argued, loved each other in many ways, frequent sex, good, great moments with our kids and my family. Her family isn't around us. We have both been divorced before getting married to each other, with both previous marriages ended by affairs by our ex-spouse. We met shortly after both marriages ended and hit it off very well. Well, to detail the current situation, since I've been deployed, my wife and kept in contact with each other daily through Facebook, Skype, and phone calls, where we'd tell each other about our day and talk about the kids, and we'd do our best to be intimate with each other often. Like I said, I'd been gone for over 7 months. There were a couple rough patches during those months, but we were doing well, or so I thought. At the end of May last month, my wife started acting a little indifferent towards me. I asked her what was wrong, and she proceeds to tell me that she feels our marriage is in trouble and doesn't know if we'll make it. I'm totally shocked by this, so I take it pretty hard and we talked through her feelings. She told me that she wasn't happy with our marriage, just comfortable with it, and hadn't been happy in a long time. Just the week before and many times before that, she had told me how awesome of a husband and dad I am, and how she constantly brags to her friends and coworkers about me. She also said she wanted to fight for me, and she wanted me to fight for her. I wholeheartedly agreed with her and said we would continue talking things through and would work on our marriage and fight for each other and the kids when I got back home. So that was at the end of last month, May. After that day, we go back to our normal conversations and such. A week later, I find out suddenly she has plans to go out of town and would be attending a class and needed her friend to watch our boys. I jump in and tell her wait, let my parents watch the boys for not just the weekend, but for a whole week. That way she could get some time to herself, do some things around the house she's been wanting to do, and still go out to her class. She agrees and my parents get the boys the next day. The next day, beginning of June now, we are still having normal conversations about our plans when I get home at the end of June, and about the kids, the house, etc. 3 days before she leaves to go out of town to her class, she stops talking to me. No Facebook, no phone calls, nothing. I didn't hear from her for 2 days. During this time I'm worried sick something had happened to her. On the third day, I finally hear back from her by message saying she was just taking time to enjoy herself and get her mind off things. By this time, I'm already suspecting something is going on. So I check our cell phone bills. Red flags all over. She's texting this guy who lives several states away, and has been talking to his guy since mid-April. Phone calls that lasted over 2 hours a few times, and dozens of texts almost every day. This is the time I get the sinking, sick feeling in my mind and stomach that she's been having an E with this guy, and it's going to turn into a PA. This is almost like my first marriage all over again, so for 3 days I'm freaking out and a wreck, and the only thing I hear from her is I'm enjoying my time, we'll call later. What the duck? Somehow, I lasted till the 4th day, when she is picking up the boys from my parents. She finally calls me and we talk. Nothing is going on, she said. She was by herself the entire time and she had a fun with her class and seeing the big city. She was able to explain in detail enough of what she had done that I was relieved. Too excited to see several holes in her story at first. So being the dummy, I let it go and she apologized for making me worry and said she should never cheat on me. She knows what it did to me from my first marriage, and she knows what it feel like from her first marriage as well. I am overjoyed to hear her say all this, so we go back to having normal conversations. But now there's a lot less affection from her, not saying I love you really, and not calling me pet names as much, honey, baby, etc. I try not to let it bother me. But it does ... and I still am not seeing things clearly. A week goes by with this going on. All the while I'm acting cheerful and confident, knowing that in a few more weeks I'd be home on leave for a whole month and finally getting to sit down with my wife and kids again before having to go back to my deployment area to finish the 12-month stretch. At the end of that week, we're talking on Skype. She sees me being cheerful and confident, happy to see her and the kids. She has the boys go to their room and watch TV. And then she looks at me for a minute and tells me the most painful thing I've ever endured, honey. You were right. I did cheat on you. You called it ... He met me while I was out of town, and we had sex. I'm floored, but for some damn reason. I didn't freak out. I didn't get mad. I didn't even cry. I let her continue ... She went on about how she was unhappy, and this guy said all the right things to her. They started talking to each other through a game they play together with other friends of hers. She starts crying profusely and tells me she will never forgive herself for what she did. She said what was going on in our marriage was no excuse to hurt me and do what she did. Even then, all I could say was okay. She said it's not okay. What I've done is the most horrible thing she could have done to me. I agreed with her, but with little emotion. We talked for 3 hours. She said it was a mistake. She would stop talking to the guy, never see him again. And how much she loved me and cared about me. And all I could do was agree with her and tell her she needed to stop talking to the guy. That he used her and said all the right things to her at the weakest point in her life. She told me okay, and she wanted to keep talking to me about us and the kids, and what had happened, and figure things out. Over the next 2 days, we talked but only about normal things, and didn't talk for very long. Tried to call her the next day, but no answer. She calls me the next day and only tells me we need to talk. Again, we get on Skype, and she hits me again with more bad news. She wants a divorce. I'm like, whoa, what happened here? I asked if she was still talking to this guy, and she said yes, but it doesn't matter. Because she's done. She doesn't think we can fix our marriage. I'm like, what the heck happened? She had told me her and this guy were through. Found out later through checking cell phone records he kept calling her, and they talked. At this point I'm getting very hurt, confused, but still did not get overly emotional about what she's telling me. We talked for over an hour about why she was feeling this way, and I didn't try to argue with her ... Just listen. What she said didn't make a whole lot of sense, so at this point I'm convinced this guy is really leaning into her and pressuring her to leave me for him. I have been tempted to call up this guy and chew him out, but at this point I'm trying to regroup and make sure I don't make any bad choices that will push my WS even further. Since that day 4 days ago, she's called me every day. I don't call her now, to make sure I'm okay and the kids wanting to talk to me. She's also messaged me several times on Facebook for normal conversations. Work, the house, kids. Not only am I terribly confused and hurt, but I am also not sure what to do. I go home on leave in 6 days for a month, then have to come back here for 3 months to finish my deployment. 1. Do I expose her now or wait until I go home on leave in 6 days? It's going to be hard since I'm deployed. 2. Do I demand she end the affair, or just go 180 on her? 3. Or do I do what has been suggested elsewhere? File for divorce and let her go. Just to be a little dramatic, I thought that if something were to happen to me over here, it'd be from a missile attack or enemy action. I'd never thought it would be my wife who would almost kill me. From half a world away. Sigh, I'm in keeping strong for myself and kids though. I do know who the other man is, but not much about him. She told me other man is married, but other man's wife moved back to her home country, and they are no longer together, which has been somewhat verified. I agree that I should openly demand the affair end and will start the 180 right now. I'm debating whether to call her boss. He's a really good guy and she respects him, so I think he could talk to her and figure some stuff out for us. I'm also debating whether to call her family too, so they can call her and figure out what's going on. I hope it doesn't come down to divorce, but it might be the only thing that really wakes her up. Yeah, I need to figure out really quick what to do. I did have a plan to go 180 on her before she dropped the divorce talk on me. Think it's still my best option, as well as divorce preparations. I've contacted her boss, who she trusts and respects, and he said he was shocked about what's going on and will definitely get her to talk about it tomorrow. Now I've got to keep the ball rolling and get her family and friends to talk with her too, hopefully for the better. I am in the process of exposing her now, if all goes well. From tonight till all throughout the weekend, she'll get slammed with messages and phone calls from family and friends, with no time to worry about other man, just herself. I will try to get a lawyer ASAP, whether that happens now or when I get back stateside in several days. If anything, since she is in the military still, I will have her boss or an officer give her a no-contact order that will stay in effect until the end of our divorce. If it comes to that, I will see if my lawyer can make arrangements. I could definitely tell she was generally remorseful, because she cried for the entire 3 hours we talked about, made good decisions on saying she would end it with other man and never talk to him again, and that she would sit down and talk with me, and we would figure things out, whether we could work things out or not. That was my real wife. I hate to think about it because during that brief time since last month, it was one of the very few times I could see the real her and not question if she was being real or not. Now she's been sucked back in by other man and gosh knows what they're up to, exposing her to her, my family as I type this. She's not going to get a chance to breathe for the next days. Methinks I had set it up to have my parents move back near her and the kids so she could have some support. Friends she had that said they'd be there for her while I was gone have disappeared. But now I'm thinking I'll have my parents stay where they are. Her only close friend that she trusts with the kids. I'll be sure to contact her too. Yeah, I've been talking to a mental health professional here, and it helps a little. I'm also talking to an MC stateside. Phone conversations. I'm very tempted to contact other man and firmly state to him that I will not tolerate his continued destruction of my family. I'm not sure if this will help my cause though. I really appreciate your support and wanting me to come home to my boys. Even through all of this, I'm still very excited to come home and see my boys and family. I do believe I have to say what I have to say to other man, even if no good comes of it. If I state clearly what I want, and the repercussions to him, was his kid, and my kids, if there's any decency in that piece of crap, he'll might at least temporarily back off. Might give me time to work some magic of my own and get some things straight. I'll be sure to record our conversations, especially if they get hairy. Might come in handy later. I am confident I will be able to talk and deal with her in a non-angry, positive manner most of the time. This entire time this stuff has been going on, I have yet to raise my voice or degrade her. I would especially not degrade her. Never have during our time together. She was a wonderful wife before all this crap happened. I know she's going to get mad at me, so not talking to her until I get home shouldn't be a problem. Lol. I'll just have to find another ride from the airport. I will think about exposing the other man. Right now, I think I have to concentrate on was. But I think I still will call. Leave a message to remind him who he's dealing with. Definitely will get a divorce attorney that deals with family cases. I want the best for my kids. No matter what happens. You're right, I will let her know I'm fighting for her, for the kids and our marriage. I hope it's enough to get her out of the fog she's in. Here's an update. So, 3 of her closest associates, friends, family members now know what's going on. I called other man and left a message on his phone, to the effect of, "Do not contact my wife from now on. Her boss knows what's going on, and she now has a no-contact order in effect against her. Any communication between her and OM will cause serious consequences to her and her career. Reduction in rank, fines, court-martial, possible jail time, and also will harm our families." I told him that's how much I am fighting for her and our families. I then went over it again, just so it would sink in. I also said if he cared about her and our families, he wouldn't contact her, even if she tried to contact him. I then finished with how much this is hurting her and our family, and he's especially hurting my kids. If he persists, I will come after him with everything I've got. Not a threat. It's just the way it's going to be. I then called was to let her know where I stood on things. The reason why I did this was because I wanted her to know the cat is out of the bag. I'm not going to sit by any longer. I won't tolerate her hurting us, our kids and our families, and I'm doing everything I can to fight for us. She said she understood and would not contact him anymore. We'll see. She wasn't upset really, just quiet. Said she didn't want to get upset while at work. She did seem put out. I told her boss, her father and her friend what had been going on. I hope this was a good move on my part. I can see this possibly backfiring at some point. Yikes, she said she wanted to talk more, but when she got home so she could be emotional. We'll see what happens. It's hard for me to not take some blame for what has happened in our marriage. The issues she brought up for not being happy. I can definitely see where she's coming from. I'm not saying this was acceptable to make her decide to cheat, and I'm not saying I'm taking any blame for her decision to cheat. All I'm saying is that I do believe she was at least a little unhappy. Unhappy, but comfortable. As she put it, I know now what I should have done differently, and will do to make changes. But I'm going to make the changes for me, not for her. I know this is going to sound strange, but she has owned up to her parts of our marriage not being as good as it should have been. And I see where she is coming from. She did tell me many times of things that bothered her and issues she had with us. But I didn't really listen. Again, I do accept blame for the issues in our marriage. I, however, will never, ever accept any blame for her choice to cheat. I honestly felt a little bad for getting the people involved that I did, the reasons being, they all felt really uncomfortable and it affected them deeply. Her boss didn't feel like eating today, and her friend had a bad night even though her family was coming into town. Her dad was supportive of me but didn't know what he could do to help. I still stand by my decision to expose the sitch to them but do feel guilty for how much it affected them. I did tell her that I was fighting for her and our family, and I didn't have much choice in the matter. After things calmed down a bit, she messaged me throughout the day to talk about normal things, such as doing stuff around the house when I go home on leave next week. I'm definitely confused by her behavior. One day we'll have our normal conversations, minus saying I love you or showing any other affection, besides calling me honey, and she'll even call to me make sure I'm doing okay. The next day she'll either barely contact me or ignores me completely. So, confused, I pray that exposing her will not cause irreparable harm to our sitch. I know it was a risky decision, but for now it seems to have halted the contact between her and other man. I can't verify everything but will be able to do so more when I get home. My family understands what I'm trying to do, and are very, very supportive of my decisions. The person that will have the hardest time with all of this will be my mother, as she is very old-fashioned, and despises those who mess with my family and kids. I do pray you're right about it being a bunch of crap with her saying she wants a divorce. I really do believe this was pressure caused by other man to try to ruin our marriage. That was the biggest factor for exposing, getting OM out of the picture. At least for now. The 3 times she got really emotional with me on Skype, I could honestly see my old wife talking to me, and that hurts even worse. At those times she would show her guilt and anguish and tell me she loves me so much and will always love me and care about me. The next time I would talk to her, it was pretty much like it never happened. I am starting to second-guess my decision to expose. I hope time will tell that I made the best decision that I could. I do believe she is embarrassed and mad at me for exposing. I do hope in the end, this will be the beginning of the end of the affair she let happen. Again, I do hope that I will not have to initiate D but will do so if it's my last resort. As far as long will I fight for her? I'm not so certain. My confidence and resolve are on thin ice as it is. She doesn't seem remorseful right now but has a couple times in the recent past. I know I have to take all of this into account when I deal with her and feel that my best bet is to continue my 180 with her and plan accordingly as we go along. I will not attempt to R with her until I know for sure she is committed to our marriage and repairing the damage done by both of us. I will do my best to not jump into forgiveness mode. I know in doing so, it will wreck any true R we may have, and will further degrade any chance of our marriage working out. I have attempted to figure out the status of OM's separated wife and his family. Nothing has come back so far. I can tell by looking at other man's Facebook, he is nothing but a predator. He has over 200 friends, and almost 200 of them are female. He sends out little messages here and there to feel people out and strikes when is most advantageous to him. What a frigging creep. I must admit, in my current position, it is hard not to second-guess my decision to expose. But ultimately, I do feel it was the right choice. Especially because of her strong reaction to what I did. Time will tell for sure. If she ever does want to I will be there for her as much as I can. I know deep within me that it will be a difficult road, but I also feel strongly we will make it and have a much better, deeper relationship than before. Now if I could only get her to see it, as much as it may seem opposite to other people, I was as a very good woman and mother. I know her choice to be selfish and have an affair will have a lasting effect on herself and the relationships with everyone she knows. But I do hope in the end, she'll be a stronger person for it. No matter what, I am doing my best to get good sleep. Some nights I can only sleep for 2 or 3 hours. Other nights I don't have any real issues. Eating is a whole different issue. Most days I can only handle one meal, and the occasional snack. I have been hitting the gym more often, and I believe this to be a huge asset in my determination to be more confident and bringing about the new me. Just an update to my sitch. I hadn't talked to W since yesterday morning and didn't hear from her until this morning. She called but I didn't answer. She called again about 15 minutes later, and I answered the phone. She said my younger boy, S6, had gotten in trouble and that I should talk to him. I'm like, what the hell, really? That's why you called me? This is part of her recent behavior that confuses me. One day she doesn't contact me at all or barely has any communication with me. I don't contact her either. Then the next day she will make multiple attempts at contacting me and will act pretty normal like nothing is going on. In any case, I got to talk to both of my sons, and then we talked for a while. She also wanted to verify my flight information again so she'd know for sure when to come pick me up at the airport. So, confused. One day she will barely have any contact with me or none at all. And the next day we chat and talk like everything is normal. Besides showing little affection, I haven't brought up the stuff to her after she broke down and told me what was going on. I'm going to do my hardest to make sure everything is addressed when I get back home. Right now, I can't do a whole lot about her rug sweeping. She now knows that I won't tolerate what's going on anymore. And I have to stay on top of that. Yeah, the situation with her ex is another thing that really hurts, bothers me. She went through and with him. And she even tried to stay with him for a few months to work things out or figure out what she wanted. She made a decision at that point to DM. Going to counseling and having her checked over by a mental health professional will definitely be a part of the terms of reconciliation. Almost 3 months update. I feel that by sharing my story with others, they can possibly gain insight from what worked for me if their situation is at least somewhat similar. So far anyways, since I went home on leave at the end of June and continuing since then, my wife and I have made great steps to get past the affair and work on a better marriage with each other, with the exception of a few getting things off our chests episodes, which was kind of ugly in some respects but overall a part of our healing process. Everything since then has been great between the two of us. And our kids and families. I realize there are going to be those who are skeptical or will show downright animosity towards my situation, as my D-Day was only 3 months ago and we've ended up in reconciliation and are doing really well. Even with me being back at my deployed location for a couple more months, I also understand there will be those who will tell me to be cautious. Not to rush things, not trust my formerly WW, etc. I get it. I am still cautious, scared, I trust but verify as best I can, etc. Yet I'm still very optimistic and hopeful of my situation and marriage. We both still have a long way to go as well. My comment, hope you guys like the ending of these, where there's one divorce and one reconciliation. Which one you liked better? Comment down below, sub and bell and let me begin the weekend stories.
Alright, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the ninth grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, "I'm very sorry." Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, "Get his boss here immediately." It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. "What is that idiot doing?" "All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next." Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. "If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you." I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.